Hello first years. This then is the visual project. As you can see, this combines two units. Unit 4, critical and contextual awareness, and Unit 6, which is investigating visual production and technology. I've put these two together into one project. The reason being is that there's a lot of overlap between the criteria for both of these units, as I will demonstrate. So within the criteria for Unit 4, critical and contextual awareness, it asks you to look at critical perspectives, analyse, and then if we look at the criteria for Unit 6, there's a lot of analysis of creative media productions here. And yeah, you can see there's just overlap here between the two units. So rather than make you do the same thing twice, it just made sense to put them together so there can be a streamlining of your workflow. You will see I've also put a deadline here, which is going to give you a grand total of 6 weeks. Now, the reason you got 6 weeks is because there are 2 units. And same as with the advert project, there is going to be a need for 6 weeks because we have work to do and we need to give you the right amount of time for the right amount of criteria. So the visual project is going to provide you this time, support and framework and lectures leading up to what essentially is going to be 2 bits of work you're going to hand in at the end. Let's have a look. You're going to give me in this project an analysis and a project. So the visual analysis is the first part, and that's going to be like an essay or a screencast, or if you choose to, a series of WordPress posts, or if you choose to, a vlog or a podcast. Up to you. But a visual analysis is the first part. The second part is a visual project, which can be a film or a music video or a documentary or a reality TV show or photography portfolio. There are 2 parts to the visual project. The reason there's 2 parts is that there are 2 units, and essentially each part covers a unit. This one here, visual analysis, pretty much covers Unit 4. This one here, visual project, pretty much covers Unit 6. Put them together into one brief because it makes sense. I'm trying to streamline your workflow, which we're doing quite well on the course. Here we are so far. You can see we are approaching the halfway point, incredibly, of the course. So when you hand this work in January, we'll be about halfway through the course. And then we're going to move on to audio, interactive, and then the final project itself, FMP, final major project. Let's get back to this though. The visual project asks you to do 2 bits of work. The first part is the visual analysis. Now, the visual analysis asks you first of all to look at critical perspectives. So critical perspectives are different ways of looking at visual media. So we're going to be teaching you about this in lessons, different theoretical approaches, different ideas, different thoughts in relation to visual media. What you're going to be doing is looking at different types of visual media that you love, Netflix shows, YouTubers, games, animations, photographers, up to you. Look at those guys and then apply some critical perspectives to their work. For example, looking at language and communication. So how do the examples you've given use language, whether it be spoken language, whether it be media language, the use of cameras, the use of colour, the use of lighting to communicate to the audience? How does it communicate to the audience? Through sound, for example. Use of language and communication is something I want to talk about in relation to the examples that you choose. Form and meaning. Genre, which is the French word for type, different types of media have different conventions and codes and expectations and tropes and cliches. How do these communicate to the audience? How does it create meaning for its audience? The example you've chosen, how do they create meaning through the use of mise-en-scène, through the use of dialogue, through the script? Is it going to be through the use of acting, sound, colour, set design, props? You need to look and get your teeth into these examples and then deconstruct them and tell me how different critical perspectives within different visual media communicate to the audience. Look at narrative, so storytelling. So in terms of different theories we're going to be looking at, you might look at Levi-Strauss's binary oppositions theory, whereby he believed every single story is dependent on conflict. Good, bad, right, wrong, man, woman, and so on. Without conflict, there is no story. Todorov's theory of equilibrium might be a theory you look into. He believed every story started with equilibrium, something came along and then broke that equilibrium, that balance, and caused disequilibrium. And then the story progressed until there was a new equilibrium resolved at the end. 3 parts to every story. How can you apply different narrative ideas to your examples? Semiotics. How different signs, symbols, signifiers communicate to their audience. You need to do this in relation to the examples you provide. Different signs, what they suggest to an audience, culturally, colours, wherever it might be, gestures, mannerisms, symbols, mise-en-scène, camera shots, sound, all these different elements. How do these semiotics, which is the study of signs, how do these different semiotics communicate to an audience? Apply this critical perspective and tell me how that helps you to analyse different types of media. Look at the values and purpose of different types of visual media as well. So why is it created? Why are docudramas created? Why are reality TV shows created? Why is photography created and shared? Films. Purpose. What's the purpose? What's the reason? What's the rationale? Why are they created? Any other related issues as well in relation to different critical perspectives and approaches and thoughts about different visual media, I need to see as part of the visual analysis. So I want to see you look at a range of critical perspectives and then analyse some visual media of your own choosing. Aim to do at least 3. I'll help you with that in my lessons. We'll do loads of lessons on that, don't worry about that. I then want you to explain how you will apply your knowledge and understanding of these different critical perspectives to your own visual project. So what have you learned from doing that? Have you learned anything about storytelling in terms of narratives, in terms of semiotics, in terms of how to create meaning, in terms of how to communicate, in terms of the values and thoughts and beliefs and ideology of a media, how that can communicate to an audience? How has that helped you to support your own visual project? Because the reason to do analysis is not for the sake of it, it's to make you a better creative, to make you a more reflective thinker, to make you evolve creatively and to actually have these new ideas. You actually think more about what you're creating. I then want you to critically compare and apply a range of contexts. Now, contexts are when and where and why something is created. For example, if a film is created in 1950s Iran, chances are the context, the place, the time, the culture of that film being created is going to make it a very different film because of its context than a film created in 2019 in Hollywood, America. Context is all. It changes and shapes our perceptions and ideas about different visual media. With that in mind, I want you to look at the context of different types of visual media. So, cultural and ethical perspectives, so the background and the culture of different visual-based media in terms of who created it. Ethical, so the right and wrong, the moral implications of different media, what it says, what it's for, what it's against, what its ethics are. We're covering a lot of this in our lessons, but we need to start thinking about these things and finding examples that show different cultural and ethical perspectives, ways of seeing the world. For example, Fox News has a very different cultural and ethical perspective to the world than perhaps the BBC News does. Different films made by different filmmakers have different cultural and ethical perspectives based on who produced them, the context, remember? Historical and contemporary examples I'd like to see here. So ones from the past, ones that are modern, recent, now. Obviously, you talk about different social perspectives in terms of contexts. So social perspectives. So representing society fairly in terms of people who learn differently, in terms of LGBTQ, in terms of people who look like you and don't look like you, people who are present or absent, who is seen, who isn't seen, who is visible, who isn't visible. Different social perspectives in the media. Do we only ever get to see that white, straight, male perspective, or are we starting to see a change culturally in social perspectives? Starting to see different contexts, different ways of life. Give examples. Lastly, in this little bit, professional contexts. So, in terms of professional context, think about jobs, I suppose, here, in relation to working in visual media. So workplaces, organisations, and careers in visual media here. So I want you to think about this here and look at creative media production and visual productions in particular in relation to workplaces, organisations, and careers. I need you to look into that a little bit and to talk about those jobs, I suppose, the sort of jobs that are available, the workplaces that are providing work in visual-based media, organisations that specialise in this, and different careers that are available within this, and which of those, if any, appeal to you. Talking about them and how it relates to your practice and how you could maybe be working for one of those workplaces or organisations in a career. Which job within that area appeals to you? Any other related issues as well relating to context here would be good to include as well in this bit. So, contexts, critical perspectives, these are the two areas you're going to be covering in the visual analysis. At the end of it, this bit here, I want you to explain how you will apply an understanding of context and contextual parameters. Parameters are sort of things around you, I suppose, that sort of the guidelines, as it were, the outline that you need to work within. The context. Explain to me how you will apply these different contexts and different understanding of contexts. So, cultural and ethical, social, professional contexts. How does that help you with, again, your own visual project? How does it help you? What have you learned from that? The first part is visual analysis, which is an essay or a screencast, or, as I say, you can do it another way if you want. And these are the areas I want you to cover within that. Any questions? YouTube comments beneath, please. Second part is the visual project itself. Now, the reason you do this first is that you actually learn these different perspectives and understand about contexts before you actually create your own visual project. And within this, you're going to create what you want to create. A film, an animation, could be a game, could be a photography portfolio, could be your own reality TV show, like I say. You decide. But first, analyse what is needed in terms of requirements and parameters. So again, parameters means the outline, as it were. Let's get a definition here for you, shall we? So in terms of parameters, so it's what defines a system, the outline, as it were. Something that defines the scope of a process or activity, the limits is a better way of phrasing it, I suppose. So, what are the requirements and limits is a far better phrase of your visual project. So, in terms of limited resources, time, actors, ability in terms of software, confidence, what's required, what are your parameters, your limits. Maybe a little post on WordPress would suffice for that, or a vlog or a podcast. Again, up to you. You're going to carry out some research activities to support solutions to your visual project. So what that means is research your idea and find out that it's viable, it's needed, there's an audience for it. You can do this with, again, a short document, a vlog, a podcast, some screen grabs. Prove and justify that your idea is valid. A bit of research is needed here. And I then want you to do some planning, organisation and presenting of solutions for your visual project. So some planning, I've got some documentation you'll be doing as part of this course, such as recce's, risk assessments, health and safety, storyboarding, scripting, if appropriate. I'll be observing you for organisation skills, and you'll be presenting your solutions as well. So that'll be you putting the work onto your WordPress. You're then going to create the actual piece itself, showing good practical skills, and then you're going to, at the end, evaluate your work, which can be a little evaluation, which might be written, vlog, or podcast, again, up to you. As always, the work will be on your WordPress and then submitted to Classroom at the end of the project. Deadline is the 11th of the 1st, 2019, and it will cover all of this criteria here. And the problem with visual-based media can be the workflow, the time management, the organising of your time. So I'm going to be looking for that in particular as to how well you plan your time. The first 2 weeks of this project is going to be very theoretical, me teaching you the critical perspectives and the contexts to help you do the first part of the project, which is the visual analysis. First couple of weeks we're going to be covering a lot of this in my lessons. The last 4 weeks of the project we're going to be doing this together, is how I see it. But this here, I appreciate, it's quite theoretical, it's quite wordy what I just went through. I appreciate that. We're going to be going through that in class slowly and in one-to-ones as well. What's important to me is that you comment underneath on YouTube, so you can actually get some answers from me, so all of your peers can see the answers. All right. So let's look at this one last time. This here is the Ual Grading Matrix. So what I'm looking for is a pass level for this unit. Pass, merit and distinction will be the final project, which is the FMP. All the others are assessed at pass or fail. The only one that's pass, merit and distinction is the final major project. Visual projects, where we are, pass or fail. So what I'm looking for here, in terms of your research, I want sufficient relevant information. Problem solving, I want sufficient exploration of alternative ideas and being resilient and working out issues and solving problems. In terms of planning, I want evidence of effective planning. In terms of your practical skills, I want an adequate range of processes, skills and knowledge demonstrated. In terms of context, I missed that one. Understanding of subject context, so how it's used in industry, how these examples are actually used appropriately, so you can make judgments in your own work. Understanding how it works in industry helps you become a better industry professional, hence why there is this bit here, this analysis. It's about you understanding how it's done in industry. So then when you do your visual projects, you've got this knowledge, you can then apply it. Okay? Right. 19 minutes, I'm very sorry. But I go through it in that amount of detail to help those people to go back and to watch the bit they need to watch, all right? Okay, any questions? YouTube comments below, all right? This covers 2 units, so we need to make sure we focus and use our time effectively. Contact me on Hangouts if you need any extra one-to-one help. You will be fine. You are one of the best classes I've ever had the pleasure of teaching. I've got nothing but high hopes in relation to this project, okay? Contact me if you need any extra help or one-to-ones, all right? Thank you.